My wife and I have been married for about 5 years now. My wife Amber has always mumbled in her sleep. Her family even jokes about how she often mumbles in her sleep at holiday dinners and gatherings. The only person who doesn't laugh is her mother, Katrina. Years ago when we first met, Katrina pulled me aside and told me that Amber used to sleepwalk. She told me that it was never a good idea to wake my wife up in the middle of a dream or try to engage with her indistinct mumbling. I promised Katrina that I wouldn't mess with Amber during one of her episodes. Lately though, Amber has been talking in complete incoherent conversations with someone in her dream in a dialect I have never heard from her. The voice she used was pitched higher, but eerily soothing. She had never used it with anyone before. The night it started, Amber woke me up because I thought she was on her phone. I lifted my head and heard her using the voice saying, "You poor thing, I'll help you, but you have to follow my rules." I was too freaked out to wake her. The next night, she woke me up again, but she spoke to the person or child more sternly. "You know that you live here, right? You can't follow me out again," she said. The next morning, I called Katrina, Amber's mother. Katrina recounted a story from Amber's childhood when she had an imaginary friend named Orion. Amber would act out in bad behavior and blame it on Orion. Katrina had taken Amber to therapy after Orion made her take a pocket knife to school. Katrina said that Orion was never mentioned again. Katrina reminded me that I should never wake or talk to Amber during an episode. On the third night, I heard Amber scolding the dream child in her dreams, but kept that strange high-pitched nurturing voice. "We can't keep having this conversation. You can't come out again. Real people will get hurt," she argued. In my concern, I gently placed my hand on Amber's back and began to slowly move it in a calm circular motion across her skin to wake her up. Amber rustled in the blankets and sleepily lifted her head. "Hey, sweetie, who are you talking to?" I quietly asked her. "It's okay, darling. Orion can't get us out here," she reassured me as she rolled over and went back to sleep. The next morning at breakfast, I asked Amber to tell me more about Orion. "Sweetie, something weird has been going on, and I've been wanting to ask you about something," I said nervously. "Is everything okay, Henry?" Amber asked with deep concern. "You've been talking in your sleep to someone named Orion. Do you remember your dreams at all? Do you know who Orion is?" I asked, hoping for something other than what she said next. "Nope, no clue," she confirmed. I was puzzled and even more nervous. "Amber, you've been carrying out conversations with someone named Orion in your dreams, and it sounds a little hostile," I explained. She looked a little confused, but still claimed that she had never heard of anyone named Orion. I had no option left but to bring up her childhood. "Okay, I spoke with your mom yesterday. She said that you had an imaginary friend as a kid, that you told her Orion made you bring a knife to school. Does that ring any bells?" I asked gently as I could. Amber's face twisted from concern to anger. "So, you called my mother because of what? A scary conversation I was having with a dream person named Orion, and she fed you some batshit boomer story. Is that it?" Amber defended. "Amber, it's not like that at all," I tried to explain. "Bullcrap, Henry! You got scared of a bad dream that I was having, and you called my alcoholic mother who has 3 bottles of wine a day. How could you believe anything she says? What else did she tell you?" she asked me. Your mother told me to never wake you up if you talk in your sleep or when you sleepwalk," I said sheepishly. "She's a nutcase, Henry. I haven't been caught sleepwalking in decades," Amber screamed. "Amber, you know that on any other day, over anything else, I would take your side. But last night, I did wake you from your dream. You told me that Orion couldn't get to us. What did you mean by that?" I asked. "What the heck is wrong with you people?" she yelled in escalated anger. Her face was turning red. "I'm a good wife, Henry. I can't even sleep without my mother getting involved," she cried. "Amber, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. The sleep talking really scares me though," I tried to explain. "Oh, good. Now my husband's too scared to sleep next to me," she sobbed. I held her in my arms as Amber cried. I felt awful for bringing it up. I felt awful for being scared. I felt awful for not believing her. On the fourth night, I woke up to the sound of Amber choking on something. Once my foggy brain caught on to what the sound was, I leapt out of bed and turned the light on. Amber stood up from her side of the bed and began to frantically wave her hands in front of her throat. When I ran over to her, I immediately noticed that her throat was really wide and swollen, almost in a rectangular shape. Amber was choking on a mysterious obstruction so bad that her eyes started to roll back. Suddenly, she stopped choking. There was a few seconds of silence before Amber's phone started to ring from inside her throat. Her phone screen illuminated through the muscle veins and skin of her neck. I could see that it was an unknown caller. Amber raised one hand over her head and slowly reached down into her throat to pull her phone out. Amber's mouth elongated and dislocated to make way. The phone rang as it slid up her airway and her throat returned to its normal shape. She never gagged or coughed. Amber held the phone out in my direction with an extended arm. She used that creepy voice. "Here you go, darling. It's for you," Amber said. I reached out, took the phone, and held it to my ear. Hello? I greeted anxiously. No one responded. I looked at Amber in confusion. Amber used a finger to press the speaker button on her phone screen. "It's okay, Orion. You can come out now," Amber said. The other line of the phone hung up. Our bedroom door creaked open to reveal the silhouette of a shadowy child with ambient glowing white eyes. The child stood in the doorway waiting for her. Amber turned to me and used the creepy voice to speak to me. "Henry, Orion and I are going on a trip. You can't follow me out. This is where you live," Amber said before kissing my lips and exiting the room. Her and Orion got into the car and left. I have not heard from her since, but I know her and Orion are out there. The night she left was the night before the UFOs being shot down, train derailments, and earthquakes that have been in the news. If you see Amber, tell her that I just want to come back out again. Don't neglect your dental hygiene, kids. I wish I'd taken that advice when I was younger. Growing up, I lived on soda and snacks. I guess a lot of kids did, but I'd go through a 12-pack of Coke in a single day sometimes. My parents tried their best to sway me in the right direction, but you know how kids can be with their sweets, so naturally I ended up with cavities. Awesome. So, I went to the dentist, as one does in such a situation. They did some drilling and filling, the whole 9 yards, and sent me on my way. The problem solved, for now. Well, years later, I got new insurance and hit up a new dentist as a result. He discovered that at least 2 of the fillings his predecessors billed me for were bogus. There was no evidence of decay there at all. They were just taking advantage of a kid with a sweet tooth to build the extra money out of the family. This led to, as you can imagine, a deep mistrust in the dental profession outside of this doctor. So once the kindly old man who ran that office retired, I just stopped going to the dentist altogether. I did not, however, stop drinking excessive amounts of soda. Eventually that caught up with me. It was time to face up to the years, actually, damn near a decade of neglect. I found a new local dentist who had good reviews. I had to have several extractions, a handful of root canals, numerous fillings. It was painful and expensive, and I hated my younger self with a burning passion. But hey, my suffering was over. It'd just take some time for the gums to heal over, and I'd be all good. There was one sore spot in particular where one of my back teeth had been badly infected and subsequently plucked out of its socket. But the dentist assured me that was normal and it would itch and ache for a bit, then go back to normal as the socket healed over. But the itching just kept getting more intense. It was unbearable. I couldn't exactly scratch it. I applied layer after layer of Oragel to numb the gum, but nothing worked. I was going mad. I began drinking heavily just to dull the agony, which was something I swore I'd never do after what happened to my uncle. But I didn't know where else to turn but to the bottle. And then, one morning, I awoke from yet another drunken stupor to the unmistakable taste of copper, blood pouring from my mouth. The fog. The itchy spot had burst open. I ran my thumb along my gum line, and sure enough, wait, what the hell? I felt a tooth crowning over the stitches. What? I'm 34. I lost all my baby teeth decades ago. But between the pain and the vodka, I couldn't really process what was happening. I just haphazardly wiped up the blood, downed a few more Tylenol, and went back to bed. So, here's the fun part. I was traveling for work that day, so I was nowhere near the only dentist I trusted. But this was bad. I needed to be seen immediately. I Googled around a bit, found one that didn't look too terrible in the Tucson area, and popped by for an emergency visit. I waited a bit, clutching my jaw in pain, and was eventually taken back for an x-ray. They found that, impossibly, my decaying cracked molar was patiently awaiting extraction. I just had that removed last week, I uttered in confusion. Smelling the alcohol on my breath, the x-ray tech shook his head. I don't know what to tell you, Mr. Harvey. I can see you've had extensive work done, so you're probably just confused. But you can clearly see the tooth right here on this printout. That's impossible. And yet, there it is. You're gonna want that bad boy out before the infection gets worse. I have an opening this afternoon. Piss off. He was scamming me, just like that first dentist. I was sure of it. I'd pop some more pills for the duration of my trip and wait until I got home to see my usual dentist. He stopped me with a firm yet gentle hand on my shoulder. He calmly explained that if I didn't get the tooth removed, the infection could spread and cause a litany of other health issues, up to and including death. He procured a few mirrors to show me the physical tooth and demonstrate that there was no trickery in the x-ray. Fine. Insurance wouldn't cover it, but it hurt like hell, and I didn't want to risk it spreading. Maybe I really was mixed up with the different tooth I'd had removed. Dr. W had removed 5 teeth total, and I'd been drinking a lot. I guess it's not out of the question. Except a few days after my recovery, I felt that same itching sensation again, and this time I felt it in one of the other empty sockets as well. And this time, they were pulsing. I clenched my teeth reflexively, which was a mistake. I felt my upper tooth dig into the lower one as my jaw tightened. It squished in, and then made an audible pop. I gagged as my mouth was flooded with an earthy-tasting goop. I spat it out in surprise, coating my keyboard in thick greenish sap. What the hell? And are those seeds suspended in the liquid? I grasped my jaw in pain and confusion. I could feel the roots of my tooth writhing and squirming in my gums. The now familiar taste of blood mingled with the sap, forming an absolutely disgusting frothing solution in flavor, texture, and appearance. Beneath it all, I felt the next tooth emerging from its post-surgical socket. I rinsed my mouth out with mouthwash as best I could and gently prodded it with a Q-tip. Sure enough, this one was hard to the touch, but I felt something give underneath the enamel coating. At this point, panic had set in and completely sobered me up. I felt the sap-filled pustules growing underneath enamel shells throughout my mouth. I screamed, I vomited, I passed out. I don't really know what happened next. I woke up in a hospital-style bed in an unfamiliar dentist office. I hazily looked around, but didn't see anyone. I flicked my tongue around my mouth. Maybe it was all a dream. To my horror, I found a nearly completely empty gum line across my entire lower jaw, and a handful more were missing from the roof as well. Ah, good morning. You were in a pretty bad accident, I wager. Not sure what happened, but when your roommate brought you in, there wasn't much to work with. We saved what we could, but, well, "I'm here to take a cast for partial dentures," said the stern dentist, presumably responsible for tearing out all of those God knows what's from my mouth. I couldn't say much in response. Between the pain, the analgesics, and the swabs of cotton in my mouth, I just moaned a little. I had so many questions, but couldn't utter a word. He took the cast, applying excruciatingly painful pressure to the afflicted sockets with his mold. "I'm so sorry," he added as he left. He noted that they'd call in a few weeks once the casting was completed and avoid chewing in the meantime. Sure, I'd definitely be chewing with the half-dozen teeth I have left if he hadn't said that. I went home and drank myself to sleep yet again. I'd given up hope. Honestly, I was about ready to take my own life. Then, I woke up with a full mouth of teeth again. I'm afraid to chew on them. I can feel the roots squirming and growing beneath the hard shell. I don't know where these things came from or why. I don't know if they're dangerous. Hell, I don't even know if it's worse to pop them open or let them fester. But I feel the roots burrowing deeper and deeper into my skull in the meantime. And one question dominates my mind now. What happens if they reach my brain?